I did my work this week. Woo! And baby, I just got paid. Gonna go buy me a fresh pair of Gators with some of this money that I made. Male waiters on the radio singing about the whiskey. I think I'll go by the stove to get me a bottle so I can be ready to get my groove on the dance floor. Baby, baby, it's Friday, 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 baby. I'm gonna party, party, and get my groove on, get my groove on. It's Friday, Friday, baby. Oh, and I'm gonna party to the break of dawn.
What y'all know about that Sir Charles Jones? It's Friday, and it is Friday, and we are live here on the State of the Saints podcast. What's going on, Who Dat Nation? It is yours truly, TJ Jones, and yes, I am the host of the State of the Saints podcast. Thank you so much for checking out the State of the Saints podcast, where we talk New Orleans Saints. Really do appreciate your time. We got a special show for you on this edition. We're going to have a guest later on in the show, Mr. Emery Hunt from CBS Sports, college football and NFL analyst. He will be talking to us a little bit about some of the stories that involve the New Orleans Saints and the NFC South. But, of course, we're going to be talking about Michael Thomas to start the show. Shouts out to everybody in the chat right now, those that are filing in. Shouts out to those that can't make it to the chat but are listening around the country, around the world, wherever you are, wherever you may be. I appreciate your time. But let's go ahead and talk a little bit about Michael Thomas, because I'm pretty sure a lot of you have heard already that the Saints are negotiating with Michael Thomas. And the negotiation talks is really good. And all signs are indicating that Michael Thomas will be back with the New Orleans Saints on a contract extension, which is great. I mean, we know the type of talent Michael Thomas is. We know how special he can be. Unfortunately, Michael Thomas has been injured over the last couple of years, and I think some people may forget about the special ability that he has, or some people just feel like you're probably going to see it, but you're not going to be able to see it in a larger sample size like in years past because of the injuries. Regardless, Michael Thomas joining the New Orleans Saints and being a part of the team makes this team wide receiver corps much, much better. And I'm praying that Michael Thomas gets it all together as far as his health. I believe that Michael Thomas wants to be on the field. You do not start your career on a note that high and just phone it in because you get paid. Like, there was something that was driving Michael Thomas. Yes, the guy wants to get paid, of course. You put your body on the line. What player doesn't want to get paid? But there was something else driving him as well. And what was driving him was to be the absolute best at his position. And he was. When he was upright and there was nothing ailing him, he was a top 5 player. Last time when he was upright and playing at a high level, he was number 5 on the NFL's top 100 list. You do not make that list in the top 5 if you're just some average Joe Blow down the street. And I get it. There are a lot of Saints fans that are frustrated. There are a lot of Saints fans that are kind of, reluctant to actually believe they will actually see Michael Thomas on a high level once again. I can understand all that. But the way that I feel like this new contract is going to be structured is probably going to be a lot of incentive-laced contract, a lot of incentives in this contract, I should say, because, the Saints have to protect themselves. And if Michael Thomas is being honest within himself, he has to understand why they would actually put the type of verbiage in their contract to make sure that they protect themselves. Now, I will say this. I am happy that Michael Thomas, if they get this deal done, I will be happy Michael Thomas is still a part of the New Orleans Saints. You will not hear anything from me because I like Michael Thomas a lot. He is one of my favorite New Orleans Saints players. But what I said on the last episode of the State of the Saints podcast, those that don't learn from their history will doom to repeat it. And I'm saying this, even though the New Orleans Saints want Michael Thomas back, I feel the New Orleans Saints still need to draft a player with Michael Thomas's skill set. I'm not saying the guy is going to be Michael Thomas, but there is Jonathan Mingo out there out of Ole Miss. You got Bryce Ford Wheaton out there in West Virginia. You need to draft somebody with that same similar skill set, a possession receiver, just in case something was to happen with Mike, or even if you want to move on from Jarvis Landry. There's still somebody out there that you can run the same type of routes or can be the same type of decoy that Michael Thomas is. I really feel this way. I don't understand. When I am bringing up guys like Adam Thielen, I'm bringing up guys like Odell Beckham Jr., people are saying to me, we got enough. We got enough. If you've been watching the Saints over the last 2.5 years, you see that the New Orleans Saints, they do not finish the season with what they start with the wide receiver position. At the wide receiver position, they started off having Jarvis Landry, Michael Thomas, Chris Olave, Marquez Callaway. The list goes on and on. Then all of a sudden, Chris Olave becomes your number one. You just had manna rain down from heaven in the form of Rashid Shaheed for him to be something. And then you had a whole bunch of other guys like Callaway just catching quick slants on third down. You need to make sure that you are beefing up your wide receiver room. You have to be over-prepared. I don't think I'm telling anybody that is from Louisiana or the Gulf Coast anything that they don't already know. How many times have we watched on the Weather Channel that they said that a hurricane was coming, right? Hurricane was coming. What do? We go to the stores. We get a whole bunch of stuff that we may or may not even need. Hopefully that we won't need it just in case, right? All I'm saying is just in case things don't pan out, and what you have seen over the last couple of years tends to happen again in 2023, you will be prepared. I'd rather be over-prepared than under-prepared. Just that simple. Like, I'm not resting on the fact that I got this, and that. I'm not that type of person, Who Dat Nation. People tell me, you so blessed, you get opportunity to do what you love to do. You always wanted to do broadcasting, you doing that. Yeah, that's great and that's fine. But I'm always trying to find ways to make myself even better, to come up with a plan just in case some other plan just don't work out. And I think the Saints need to do the same exact thing. Once again, I am happy. I am really, really happy that the Saints and Michael Thomas seem to be on the same page. It don't seem like Michael Thomas is dealing with some of the same things that he had dealt with when it comes to the organization in years past. It seems like he really likes Dennis Allen. It seems like he really wants to win for Dennis Allen. And it seems like he's really showing that he wants to be here. There are even reports that are saying that he was extremely instrumental in Derek Carr landing with the New Orleans Saints. He was talking behind the scenes, him and along with a few other NFL Saints players, I should say, a few Saints players. Tyrann Mathieu is another. So you had guys that were out here trying to, acquire the services of Derek Carr, and Michael Thomas was one of them. So Michael Thomas actually going out here trying to solicit the help of Derek Carr tells you that he wants to be here. So for all those people that's talking about, I don't know if Michael Thomas wants to be here, I think that that's an indication that he does indeed want to be here. So I'm happy for that. And if everything can work out, if Michael Thomas can stay healthy, then we know that he can be a really, really good player for the New Orleans Saints, and he can be the breath of fresh air and something we've been missing over the last couple of years when it comes to that position. But let me go ahead and read some of your comments. Once again, we have Emery Hunt that's going to be coming on later in the show in just a few minutes. CBS analyst, New Orleans native, man. He graduated from McMain High School, doing really big things with CBS Sports, man. Raging Cajun, went to Louisiana Lafayette, played running back. So definitely looking forward to hearing from him really, really soon. But in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and read some of your comments. And those that are here that's watching this right now or listening to it, I ask that you hit the like button or the subscribe button if you are new to the channel. But let's go ahead and get started, and we'll talk a little bit about what you guys have to say. I have a problem with us always getting ultimatums and other folks get a pass. Look, I think that a lot of people, and I'm pretty sure what you're saying is, and what you're trying to get at is the whole thing about Jameis Winston, which, I'll get into that a little bit later, because that's something that I feel like you can't really sum up in the next, 5 minutes. So we definitely will talk about that before, the end of the show, because I'm pretty sure a lot of people want to talk about the Saints and the restructuring of Jameis Winston's contract and the ultimatum that they gave him. It says that's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes, no matter how much it sucks. Yeah, I mean, look, like I said, we're going to talk about that just a little bit later. It says, I like Cedric Tillman out of Tennessee. He is a big physical wide receiver like Michael Thomas, same height and weight, 6'3", 213, but he is faster. Maybe we target him in the draft. Yeah, I mean, that's somebody that you definitely can look at. Had opportunity to actually see him up close. He definitely looks the part. But I look at some of those later round guys, because to me, I just feel like the New Orleans Saints, they got bigger fish to fry, so to speak, before they even need to consider getting a wide receiver. Like, to me, I feel like interior, a pass rush, and other positions like maybe safety, even running back, needs to be addressed before you go to a wide receiver. I look around and I see the running back position. This is a pretty deep draft for the running back position. And especially, this is like the new breed of running back. You have a lot of talented guys who can catch the ball out of backfield, running between the tackles, and can give you everything that you want. And you can get guys like that in the third and the fourth round. I also look at some of these wide receivers, man, who have that big body, that possession type skill set. You can get those guys in like the third or the fourth round. That's why I'm looking at a guy like a Bryce Ford Wheaton. I've been lobbying for him, and I've been lobbying because I look at the New Orleans Saints, them acquiring Derek Carr. This kind of changes the entire draft in my book. And I also look at the fact that some of the positions that if you need them, you're going to have to get pretty early. Now, on the defensive line and the interior, it's pretty deep in this draft, and so is the running back. The wide receiver position, what the Saints are actually asking, what we expect the New Orleans Saints to go after, right? The Michael Thomas kind of mode. These guys are going to be there late. And, this is a guy that I feel Bryce Ford Wheaton would be there. Cedric Tillman is a guy that I feel like was probably going to be gone by the time that the Saints address some of the things that are a little bit more imperative to address. I think that Tillman is going to be gone. So you're probably going to have guys like Whedon. And unfortunately, maybe a guy like Jonathan Mingo is probably going to be gone as well. So I look at Tillman. He's extremely talented. And I just think that by the time the Saints finish addressing the interior or the pass rush or the offensive line, I think that he more than likely is going to be gone. So you're probably going to have to be looking at some of those other guys that kind of fits that mold, fits that makeup for you to be able to get a little bit better at the wide receiver position. Deej says, how would you feel about getting Foster Monroe? I feel like he would be a good fit. Look, didn't have an opportunity to really look at him. I hear a lot of positive things. Look, anyway, the Saints go, to me, is not a wrong answer. Like, this is not one of those years where we've been talking about getting a cornerback and then they go out there and they just get another 6'7", 280-pound defensive end. Like, if they was to get that defensive end, I don't think anybody would question that, because we all know that they need help on the defensive line. the interior. We know they need help on the interior. If they was to draft the offensive line in the first round, look, I don't think anybody have a problem with that either. So this is a draft where I just feel like Saints fans wouldn't be upset with anything. Like if the Saints in the later round draft Jake Moody to kick out of Michigan, like I don't think anybody have a problem with that, right? I mean, that's just the way things are going right now. Like you can add depth to any position and the Saints will be better because of it. How Nolan Smith out of Georgia. I guess, look, Nolan Smith definitely is a freak of nature. Kind of reminds me of a Javon Curse type player, like a guy that's just a freakish athlete, not as big as Javon Curse is, or was, I should say, but he still is a freakish athlete. He's a guy that can get after it. He's a guy that can definitely give you a little bit of help with the pass rush. And he fits that new mold of a defensive end / edge rusher that you're looking for, a guy that I feel like can give you those double-digit sacks because of his athletic ability, his skill set. All those things kind of just checks the boxes, right? And I really feel like this guy can give you something that you definitely would be missing. Using profanity here will get you timed out or hidden. Follow the rules. Yeah, definitely don't want to have profanity here on the show. This is a family-friendly show, of course, and shouts out to the moderators, making sure people are being held accountable. I think we all can address and say how we feel without having to use, strong language or insulting anybody or saying, calling anybody names. And the moderators will act accordingly, if that was to happen. So shouts out to them putting in that work. Thank you. Let's see. Some of y'all be in y'all feelings too much about Jameis or any other player and decision the NFL makes. Man, this is a business. That's why I don't get my emotions too attached on decisions they make. I'm definitely going to be addressing that later on in the show. Like I said, this whole situation about Jameis Winston, it involves talking a little bit longer than just 5 minutes. So I will be talking about that, towards the end of the show. It says, yeah, facts, TJ. I see first 2 picks on the O-line and D-line. And if wide receiver Smith from Ohio State falls to the Saints, do you take him or pass? Well, look, Njigba Smith is not going to be there. He's more than likely going to be a first-round draft pick. So he definitely won't be there when the Saints pick. So this isn't one of those guys that's going to be a late-round pick. He's an extremely talented guy. So based on the Saints going out here addressing more important needs to help their team improve, I don't think he'll be there around that time. Let's see. People forget about, people forget the Saints have Dixon out of Carr on the roster. That's a big physical receiver who basically redshirted for the Saints the past year, but I think will be ready this year. Yeah, I don't think anybody forgot about Dijon Dixon. I think that Dijon Dixon, he made the team, and he became a member of the practice squad. They still felt like he had some growing to do. Who knows what that's going to be like? I mean, he may end up, making the team, or he may end up getting cut. But here's the thing, man. I think when fans are looking at wide receivers, they're looking at the fact of how things kind of sputtered down the stretch because you didn't have as much help. So when you look at a guy like Dijon Dixon, you're looking at a project versus a guy that you probably can draft that you feel like will give you a little bit of more, instant success at that position. But right now, I want to introduce our guest here today on the State of the Saints podcast. Once again, he works for CBS Sports. He's an analyst. Also, he's a New Orleans native. He went to McMain High School, Louisiana Lafayette. He played for them as well, and he's doing really big things. And I want to introduce to you Mr. Emery Hunt. Emery, how you doing?
I'm doing fine, man. I appreciate you bringing me on.
Hey, man, thank you so much for being here. We really do appreciate it, man. And thank you for all the hard work that you're doing out there in the field with CBS Sports, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. It's a lot of hard work right now, grinding on that draft guide, trying to plow through that before the draft happens,
Yeah, no doubt about it, man. And let's talk a little bit about the draft just to get started. I mean, we both were at the NFL Combine. You had opportunity to interview some of the, top players. One guy was Bijan Robinson. Bijan Robinson, a running back out of Texas. I think that he's probably going to be that running back that goes first off the board. What are your overall thoughts about Bijan Robinson? And I'm asking you this question because the things that are going on with the New Orleans Saints with Alvin Kamara, he is a guy that can come in and contribute right away. So what are your thoughts on Bijan Robinson?
It's good about a lot of these backs coming out in this class, the fact that they are used to being in complementary roles. So Bijan is not, foreign to doing that, having Roschon Johnson right there. So you like the fact that he has that background. Then he's a good all-around back. He can pass protect. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. I asked him a question about going deeper down the field. He's able to do that. He works after practice with the running backs coach and running routes, downfield routes like a receiver. And we know he can run the football and has good speed. And I think that's what was missing from the Saints backfield. As much as, Kamara is a talent, and much as people love Kamara, he's best served as a complimentary guy and not the lead-off guy, because he's someone that feeds off when he has that guy that can set the table. And a guy like Bijan, in my opinion, can definitely do that.
Yeah, he's definitely a special player. His balance is incredible. I think it's been a while since we've seen a running back like this. You have to go maybe Saquon Barkley the last time you've seen a guy with this type of ability and skill at the running back position. Do you think that he will last to number 29?
That's the $1 million question. It depends, because he has a challenger in this class in Jahmyr Gibbs, who is more explosive, who's a breakaway threat, and is a better receiver going deeper down the field. So he brings a lot of the same things to the table that Bijan does, but in a more explosive package. But if you're a Saints fan, you're probably looking at, kind of reminds me of Alvin Kamara. You really don't want to duplicate the efforts. You want someone that's kind of a different type of back. So there's a potential he could be there. I feel like the draft is all about what position gets on a run. Every year it's, 1 year is going to be quarterbacks. 1 year it's offensive tackles. 1 year is receivers. So any one of our edge rushers, any one of those positions that happen to get a run on cornerbacks, it will always push down a position. And for the Saints' benefit for this question, it depends on, what happens first. There's a couple of wild cards up there in the front. Whether or not you see the Bears trade down a little bit, they could use a tailback. Philly has 2 first-round picks. We know they could use a tailback. A team could jump up and get a Bijan. Buffalo could jump up and get a Bijan. So there's a lot of factors in play. But for the Saints' perspective, if you don't get a Bijan, if you want him, there's Jahmyr Gibbs right there as well, too. That's just as equally as talented and a little bit more explosive than Robinson.
Yeah. There's been a debate that's been going on, Emery, between what the Saints' decision, what they just made with acquiring Derek Carr and maybe doing a little bit of a rebuild. I don't know if you've really been following it. Some Saints fans feel like signing Derek Carr was a good idea. Others felt like maybe the Saints needed to maybe draft a guy, I don't know, like a Hendon Hooker, a guy that you can probably develop and maybe get a bridge guy. Where do you fall with that? Do you what do you think about Derek Carr would be my first question to you. And do you think that the Saints maybe need to still consider drafting a quarterback in this draft?
Well, they're going to have to, because they're going to lose Jameis Winston. That should have been the option right there. A healthy Jameis is the best option for this football team. But they went ahead and got West Coast Andy Dalton by bringing in Derek Carr. Here's the thing about Carr. When you look at their peak career, right? I'm talking about Andy Dalton at his height and Derek Carr at his height. You could legitimately have an argument that Andy Dalton was better. Got to the playoffs multiple times with Cincinnati. I think he won a couple of division championships in that mix. Derek Carr has been with the Raiders for 9 years and has done virtually nothing but be kind of that QB 16. Maybe sometimes he looks like a QB 12. But for the most part, the Saints are getting exactly what they had last year. He has a better arm at this juncture than Andy Dalton, but they lose games in the same way. He takes that ill-advised sack. He has that weird fumble that happens in the middle of a game on a crucial drive. He may throw that costly interception. And I feel like this is a team, especially if you're Dennis Allen, you go back to the well in which you left with Derek Carr and bring him back into the fold. So I still don't understand what the Saints are doing at that position. So yes, they do have to draft a quarterback, and the good part about it, there's a lot of young guys in this draft that young, but this is a weird, dichotomy because you're getting these COVID plus guys. So you're going to get a rookie that's going to be 24, 25 years old. So it all depends on which young guy that they feel as though they can grow and develop with, and if this is going to be the staff long term to do it, because another season like they saw last year, then these guys may be out the door. So this is a weird year for the Saints, and at that quarterback position, getting Derek Carr that doesn't move the needle for me.
I think about, what place would they be looking at a quarterback? Would it be at number 40? Would it be, maybe a third round? Maybe a guy like, I don't know, a Tanner McKee might fall into the third round. Hendon Hooker may fall into the third round. Because I'm wondering, Emery, because we seen this happen before, right? Like, you don't want to give, I guess, your starting quarterback the impression that maybe you're looking for somebody else because you're not satisfied with their type of production or you don't trust them. So what place should they be looking at maybe drafting a guy, second or third round, or maybe even some of the later rounds? What's your thoughts on that?
It's probably the later rounds, considering the contract they gave Carr. And I know the nuance may say, hey, they can probably get out of this deal after a year or two or whatever. But, at the end of the day, you sign this guy for, on paper, looks to be a large contract. So you're expecting him to be there. And then you just have to ask yourself, do you trust this current staff to work with the quarterbacks? Remember, this is Dennis Allen that tried to tell people Matt McGloin was a better quarterback than Terrell Pryor. When Terrell Pryor, had he just had the foresight, you see what the NFL is doing now with mobile quarterbacks, he would have been at the forefront of that. And we saw how horrible that went for Matt McGloin, to where he had to go back to Terrell Pryor. And he ended up getting fired anyway. So we saw this play out with Jameis Winston. We see this play out time and time again. So do we really trust Dennis Allen to choose the right quarterback? And if you're the Saints, the scouts, do you trust that this staff will be around to develop a young quarterback? So you kind of are stuck between a rock and a hard place. You may have to go and find someone the later rounds that may be a little bit older, that there's going to be a solid number two. The reason why you want the older guy is because the older guy has played a lot of college football and can step up in there if need be, if something happens to Carr or whatnot. So you really don't want to get a young rookie. You want to get one of these guys that's 24, 25. You think maybe a Jaron Hall out of BYU. Hendon Hooker falls in that category. He's going to be 24, 25. But again, you put pressure. You know how Saints fans can get. You put pressure on the starting quarterback after a couple of incompletions. Then, next thing you know, Carr's looking behind his shoulder, looking over his shoulder. He's been benched before, so it's a weird spot that they're in based off the quarterback that they brought in and the contract they gave him, juxtaposed to the current coaching staff that's in place.
Yeah. Let's talk about Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston, there's a report by Diane Rossini from ESPN said that the Saints I got to call it for what it is. It seemed like they gave him a little bit of ultimatum. Like they are going to try to restructure his deal, and they're giving him the option of being a backup to Derek Carr, or they're going to release him if he feels like there's a market for him. Now the big debate is the Saints not doing Jameis Winston right, completely like disrespecting him, telling him we're not going to go away from you, get yourself healthy, when he had those 4 fractures in his back. Where do you stand with that, Emery? What are your thoughts about the treatment of Jameis Winston by the New Orleans Saints?
It's unfortunate, man. It's funny you rarely see a fan base kind of rally around a guy like this. And the fans, it's funny. I have to take you back to bring you forward, because when the Saints had Drew Brees and he got hurt for those 5 games, and Teddy Bridgewater got in there and, went 5-0, Saints fans kept complaining that, he only hits a check down. All right, cool. And then they get Jameis in there, and Jameis is doing what Jameis does, trying to work touchdown to check down. Fans clamored for, he's not hitting the check down. They put Dalton in. Dalton hits a check down, and the Saints, he's going 30 for 35 for 86 yards. no touchdowns in the pick, and fans like, well, they're not doing anything offensively. Well, you can't have it both ways.
Right.
So I feel like Jameis, if I'm Jameis and the Saints call me, I'm sending them a picture back of Carolina, Indianapolis, Las Vegas. I am not returning to New Orleans. Why would I return to that same coaching staff? And it's sad because you rarely see this from Saints players. Players were backing Jameis in the midst of the season as they were losing. And like, man, they're throwing out subtle hints that, man, Jameis should be in there. Jameis should be our guy. They rock with Jameis. So if I'm, Jameis, why would I come back and be a backup to a dude I know I'm better than? So especially when the quarterback market is hot, especially if you're looking at a team that maybe just outside that top 5 that won't want to trade assets up to go and get one of these young quarterbacks in the draft. So if you're looking at Carolina, if you're looking at, perhaps Las Vegas, Indy, a sleeper would be Washington, and so but all of that being said, the biggest thing for Jameis, he has to stay healthy because he's now put himself in that category. We saw him get toward the ACL a couple of years ago. Then last season with the back. So now he's put himself in a situation where can we trust this guy to be out there for a full 17-game season? And unfortunately, that limits your options in terms of financial burden because, hey, we don't know if you can stay healthy. They'll throw that out there, which could be a legitimate argument. So, even if you're Jameis, you have some, Pittsburgh could be an option for you if you want to take the backup and have a pathway to maybe overtake their first round pick who, is average at best. You know what I'm saying? So there's some options for Jameis. One of them would be to not return to New Orleans.
Yeah. Final question for you is about Michael Thomas. The Saints are in negotiations with Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas back in 2019 was, a lot of people consider one of the best, if not the best wide receiver in football. 149 receptions, 1,700 yards. I think 9 touchdowns, if I'm not mistaken. Last couple of years, he's dealt with an ankle injury. Last year, he dealt with a toe injury that kept him out. What are your thoughts on Michael Thomas? Can he go back to being that Michael Thomas that people remember, being that all-pro at the age of 30 years old? And do you think that this is the right decision for the New Orleans Saints to try to renegotiate a contract with can't guard Mike?
Yeah, you kind of want to keep your top guys around, but the problem with Michael Thomas is the same thing with Jameis. Can we trust that he'll be out there for a full 17-game season? Yeah. And that's the biggest question, man. You want him on the team because he's productive. We saw glimpses of the old Michael Thomas in week 1 against the Falcons,
right?
And then he had the injury. But man, it's almost like you really can't depend on. And this is speaking from a front office perspective. Like, we like the guy, we want him around. He's tough. He's exactly what we want on the team. But can we depend on him to be out there for a full 17-game season at this price? And the reason why you want to restructure is twofold. You want to restructure, try to create some more room to get more players on your team, but you also want to restructure to make it more feasible to move a guy if you don't want him on a team. So it's easier for a team to take on a lesser burden of a contract as opposed to a massive contract. So there's multiple reasons why the Saints want to restructure. Some of it, I would say the majority of it is good faith because you want Derek Carr to have someone to throw to. Right. Outside of Chris Olave, you want to have 2 good options. Right. But you also understand the situation that you're in. Like, hey, man, this guy has missed how many games over the last couple of seasons? If we could get him for additional picks while also freeing up some cap room, it's a win-win for the organization and the team building process.
I got a follow-up. Even though you're trying to work things out, and let's just say you do work out a deal and you bring back Michael Thomas, do you still look in the draft to maybe find somebody with that same similar skill set just to kind of have a little bit of an insurance policy?
There's no downside to adding good players on a team, especially at that position. I mean, look at Cincinnati. They got legitimately 3 number ones at wide receiver. Higgins, Jamar Chase, and I was always a big fan of what they get from Tyler Boyd. I was a big fan of his when he was at Pitt. So, yeah, there's no downside. We've seen teams go out there with 3 legit number ones at wide out before. Right. So, yeah, you want to continue to add weapons. You want to continue to stockpile and make it tough to defend, because we know the NFL is a primarily 3 wide receiver, 1 tight end set. So you're putting a lot of strain on a defensive team's third corner. Your third corner better be a number 1 type corner. Otherwise, he's getting blasted out there on game day. So, yeah, you want to find someone with similar skill set. You want to find someone that's physical, especially if you are struggling right now. The Saints have been struggling to find that old school tight end that they've usually had.
Yeah.
Jawan Johnson starting to come along and be a threat. But you know, if you can't find the tight end that you're looking for, stockpile the receiver room. And those guys just got to stay healthy. Saints have talent. They had talent going in, was why I thought they were going to do great things last year going into the season.
Right.
But man, when everybody started to get hurt, like one after one after one, it was like there was no way this team offensively is going to be successful. So yeah, there are options, and they got to find ways to really stockpile a room, no matter what room that is, with talent.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Hopefully Michael Thomas can, stay healthy, because we all know how special this guy can be when he's upright. Emery, thank you so much for your time. Really do appreciate it. Emery Hunt from CBS Sports. Let everybody know how they can get in touch with you.
Follow me on Twitter at FBallGamePlan. Subscribe on YouTube at youtube.com/footballgameplan, and pre-order your copy of the Football Game Plan Draft Guide. It's going to be the largest draft guide in draft guide history. Last year, we had over 1,000 individual scouting reports. It's a PDF file. I print mine out. I'm crazy. So this is what it looks like printed out. So so you get all individual scouting reports. No one else is going to give you that type of information. Everyone else is going to have lists. So if someone's going to get drafted, best believe he's going to be in the scouting guide. And so you can pre-order your copy at footballgameplan.com/2023 draft guide.
Yeah, definitely order yours today. Thank you so much for being here, man. And we appreciate all the hard work that you're doing. Definitely putting on for the city. Everybody can't go to Carver like myself, but but we appreciate everything that you're doing, man. You're definitely killing it out there with CBS Sports, and good luck to you, man.
I appreciate you, man. Keep doing great work. You got a great following. You got a great format, great show. I check you out all the time, and I'm not just blowing smoke because I'm here, man. You keep doing great work, man. I'll forgive you for being from Carver, but I got a lot of friends that went to Carver. Fred Stamps, Billy Howard, all those guys.
Yeah.
The whole, I could go, we talked about this in Indy. I can go down the list, all the guys, L. Page, all these dudes I know from Carver. So shout out to you and the great work that you're doing out there, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much, man. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Emery Hunt, thank you so much for being on the State of the Saints podcast, man. I'll talk to you later.
Have a good one.
All right, take care. Yeah, man, shouts out to Emery, man, doing really great things, and appreciate him, taking a little bit of time, to talk to us. And, man, look, I definitely agree with what he's saying about adding to your team, like especially what we've seen with the injuries, that the Saints have had at the wide receiver position. So definitely, I think that would be a good idea, even though I'm expecting Michael Thomas to, put it together and maybe, I don't expect for him to be what he was in 2019. Like, you have other guys out there that can make plays, that can do a lot of different things. So it wasn't, it's not just on him. But if he can be a glimpse of what he was in 2019, I think the Saints should be okay with that. We're gonna do a few more comments, and then we're gonna talk a little bit about Jameis Winston, and then we'll go ahead and get up out of here, folks. Thank y'all for being here. Hope everybody enjoyed the interview. Once again, shouts out to Emery Hunt for being here, man. That's my guy right there, man. We chopped it up at the NFL Combine. Good dude, man, and very candid with his time, and I appreciate that. Says people are quick to back Derek Carr because he didn't have a great defense, 5 coaches, etc. But Jameis Winston does not get the same backing. I wonder why. Let's see. Ant-Man, what a great question. Wonder if anybody got the stones and honesty to answer that question. I don't even know. Okay. I guess we're talking about, that. But like I said, man, we're gonna get into the Jameis Winston conversation. I'm gonna scroll back up and read some of your comments. Cause like I said, the whole Jameis Winston thing is gonna be longer than 5 minutes. No disrespect, but come on, man. Carr had a circus with the Raiders organization. Can't put that on him. I mean, look, the Raiders organization is pretty bad. You know, it is pretty bad. It has been a revolving door. A lot of people consider it as a joke. But once again, you can say the same thing about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with Jameis Winston. I mean, Jameis Winston was the first pick overall for a reason, right? And I think that people look at Tampa and maybe they don't give Jameis a pass because when Jameis left, they won a Super Bowl. But if you're being real with yourself, like they replaced Jameis Winston with arguably the greatest quarterback of all time, right? Tom Brady, like whether you like him or not. Like, you know, that's like, I don't know. That's like replacing Sandman Sims from the Apollo with Michael Jackson. I mean, come on, give me a break. No, like I'm just saying, in the eyes of individuals, Tom Brady is the GOAT. And, you know, replacing him, of course, is going to make your team better because guys are going to want to play for him. Guys are going to want to block for him. Guys are going to run harder for him because they know what he brings to the table. So I do think I really truly believe that there are similarities between these two guys. I think sometimes when we argue, we're not even realizing it. Like I think that a lot of people are upset that people are giving Carr that pass that they wish that people would give to Jameis Winston. But, you know, it don't always happen like that. One thing I won't question is Mike T. Hands. Even if he lost more speed, just throw it in his vicinity. He going to catch it, even if he gets no yards after the catch, move the chains. Yeah, I mean, but I still think that he'll be able to, you know, make some noise. And, you know, the thing about with Michael Thomas is not like, you know, he's been, you know, dealing with a knee injury or hamstring injury or something like that. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of just been plaguing him throughout the years. I mean, it's just been kind of stuff that he had to get from surgery. So, I mean, he still have his, you know, I feel like he's still in pretty relatively good shape when it comes to that. So I think he should still be able to put it all together. Let's see. TJ, I am getting real close to being able to close the COC 2.5 gripper, which is one of the top 10 hardest grippers in the world to close. My grip strength is off the chains. Well, that's good to know, Josh, man. Man, congratulations to you. I know you put in a lot of hard work, slimming down and, you know, trying to live a better lifestyle. You know, so I'm proud of you. And I know the Who Dat Nation and those that follow the show are proud of you as well. It says, I would love Mac Hollins and send Traquan to the unemployment line once and for all. Yeah, I think this is it for Traquan Smith. He probably going to end up playing in Denver somewhere. I mean, Sean Payton loves Traquan Smith. And if I can look, I said C.D. Deuce might end up, you know, in Denver. I'm probably like maybe 55% sure about that. Traquan landing in Denver, I'm probably at 75, 80%. Like Sean Payton just loves him. He loves the type of receiver that he is, believe it or not. So, I mean, but he'll end up bouncing back, man. But I mean, he barely even played at all. So I don't expect for Traquan Smith to even be out there. Let's see. Think because Jameis, black quarterback, not many black quarterbacks. I mean, they got quite a few now. You know, you got your Mahomes, you got your Jalen Hurts, you got your Dak Prescott, you got your Lamar Jacksons, you got your Geno Smiths, you got your Kyler Murrays. So, you know, like, you know, we're starting to, you know, see more, you know, African-American quarterbacks get opportunities to play. And I mean, who knows? This might even be Malik Willis's year to be the starter for the Tennessee Titans. So that would be another African-American to play the quarterback position. So, see, as a Raider fan, you don't know our roster and how Mac will indeed help us when we was giving Kevin White snaps. Who's letting these people in here? We say as a Raider fan. Oh, okay. I guess we had a Raider fan in there. You're letting them know about it. But hey, let's go ahead and fast forward a little bit. Let's talk about Jameis Winston. Let's talk about this. Let's address the elephant in the room. Jameis Winston gets an opportunity. Well, I won't say opportunity, but the New Orleans Saints decided to restructure his deal, giving him the ultimatum, as I like to say, the old tomato. Take this deal, or you can we can cut you and then you can go out here and try to find another team. First and foremost, Jameis Winston isn't coming back. I will be shocked if Jameis Winston comes back. Jameis Winston deserves to have an opportunity to be a starter in the National Football League. The way that the Saints handled Jameis Winston last year could have been handled way better. Okay, it could have been handled way better. They basically, hell, they lied. They lied to the guy. They kind of put him at ease. Oh, you don't have to worry about anything. Just heal your back up. We want to make sure that you're 100%. But we all know at the end of the day, I mean, the guy was on a leash about as short as, I don't know, a little small miniature dog collar. I mean, it was pretty short there. And we know that any mistake that he would have made, is pretty much was going to be a quick yank. I remember watching Jameis Winston week 1 versus the Atlanta Falcons before he facilitated that comeback. And a lot of people in the crowd thought that Andy Dalton was going to go in because you had Jameis go into the tent and then you had Dalton put his helmet on. He's throwing and Andy was about to go out there. And then Jameis says, no, I'm going back. And then you can kind of see the look on Andy Dalton's face like he thought he was going to play and didn't. He kind of just shrugged it off a little bit. That's one of the things that you don't get opportunity to see, when you're watching a game on TV. When you're there live, you can actually see like these guys in real time and how some of their expressions are. You can't hide that. But anyway, he goes back into the game. We know that he facilitates that 16-point comeback. He goes on that tear in the fourth quarter, giving Michael Thomas those 2 touchdowns. Setting up the field goal to take the lead. I mean, doing all these really good things. Of course, he was injured more than we even anticipated. And, then all of a sudden, he plays in that Tampa game, doesn't play well because he was dealing with the injury. Then Carolina happens. And, now you have 2 games where it just looks like he's resorting back to his old self. But the team is not. Now, I don't want to say they weren't taken into account. They weren't transparent enough to let people know the severity of the injury. It was more like, oh, he playing like Slaw. He always plays like Slaw. This is exactly what we expected. So let's bring in Andy Dalton. And the next thing you know, we never seen Jameis Winston again. So that could have been handled a little bit better. I don't feel like you had to kind of stress the truth. I think that, football is a game where, transparency is key. Guys should not be wearing their emotions on their sleeve. And if they do, who cares? It's about the betterment of the team. But I also feel like you need to be real with these players and let them know what the deal is. But Jameis Winston getting this restructured deal, telling him that he's going to be the backup for Derek Carr, don't expect for him to be back. I feel like it could have been handled a completely different way. My thing is this. It's not the fact that I have anything against Jameis Winston. I do not. But at this particular point, we just have to come to grips and just understand the Saints do not want him as their starting quarterback. It's that simple. Like, we can go back and forth all day, all night. We can talk about what could have been, what he has to bring to the table. We can talk about all these things. But the New Orleans Saints do not want Jameis Winston as their starting quarterback. Maybe some of the guys do in the locker room. Maybe some of them, feel like, Jameis can do some things, make some noise. But as an organization, for the most part, the ones that are the decision makers do not want Jameis Winston to be their quarterback. I feel like, just like how a lot of you feel, the New Orleans Saints feel like maybe they need to go with a guy who is more of an easier read than a guy that they have to kind of break down and, come up with a plan and maybe stay up a little bit longer than they have to in order for them to make things work with Jameis Winston. I think that Jameis Winston is a guy that it takes, a coach that has patience and a coach that is willing to allow him, to be himself and also be able to kind of reel him in when necessary. I felt like Jameis Winston and Sean Payton were a good combination. I feel like Jameis Winston and Kyle Shanahan would be a good combination. I think that Jameis Winston and Andy Reid would be a good combination because I feel like those guys will allow Jameis Winston to be himself, but at the same time, kind of reel him in when necessary. I think that some of these other coaches, they don't want to work that hard. And it's unfortunate for Jameis Winston. It's unfortunate that, that we're at this particular situation again. But, here we are, and it's not going to change. Like us going back and forth and disagreeing and trying to blame GA, trying to blame the white man, trying to blame the other man, it is, I hate to say it, it's pointless. This guy is not going to be the starting quarterback of the New Orleans Saints. It pretty much sums it up. But this isn't over for Jameis Winston. I feel like Jameis Winston still will have an opportunity to be the starting quarterback somewhere. I feel like he will be able to compete somewhere. It's unfortunate that, NFL is about narratives. And since Jameis Winston has stepped foot on Florida State campus, he has been under the microscope. He has been scrutinized, and he has been the center of attention. And a lot of these narratives that they have about Jameis Winston, you cannot convince me that that's one of the main reasons why he doesn't have a big market. That's one of the main reasons, that's not one of the main reasons why people don't give him an opportunity, even though he possesses a really good skill set, a skill set that's better than the majority of the quarterbacks that you see. I just think that the narrative that mainstream sports media runs with, always, looking at him and, and making fun of how he talks and some of the analogies that he used and, his facial expressions and all that kind of stuff, people look at him as a joke. So teams and organizations kind of look at that type of stuff and they don't want to be the guy who, has the guy on their team that's considered the court jester. And it's unfortunate because if you really look at Jameis Winston's skill set and his ability, he makes guys better around him. Like Traquan Smith went from over 100 yards in a game versus Carolina, if I'm not mistaken, when Jameis Winston was the quarterback. Chris Olave almost had 200 yards receiving in a game versus the Carolina Panthers. We seen more deep passes down the field of Chris Olave. He was out there. He was getting it, right? You had Deontay Harris at the time. He was leading the team in receptions, not last year, but the year before last. He almost had 1,000 yards before Jameis Winston ended up getting hurt. And then all of a sudden, you didn't see Deontay Hardy anymore. You had Marquez Callaway going out there, making a name for himself, coming down with some of these circus catches. So everybody around him, no matter how you look at those guys, they played better. So Jameis Winston has a lot of key qualities. But I think that a lot of people look at him in a certain light because of how mainstream sports media has portrayed him. And also this whole narrative as if he's not fixable. This narrative is he's not good enough, and I look at other quarterbacks who have been in the league that has thrown interceptions and has made mistakes. They still find themselves as a starter, and you don't really see that much scrutiny coming from them, coming about them, I should say. But when it comes to Jameis Winston, it's like, there's always a narrative about him, and it's unfortunate. I just want to see this guy perform at a high level. I don't care if it's with the New Orleans Saints or not. I want a team to be able to believe in this guy. And if it doesn't pan out, it just doesn't pan out. I think the worst thing about all of this is we don't know what Jameis Winston could have been in the Saints uniform. Like, we don't know. Like, he could have been the answer that we were looking for, the answer, that we didn't have to go out here and get Derek Carr. We'll never know. A lot of what we say about Jameis Winston is simply like our own personal assessment, gathered, but what happened in 2019, and we just kind of run with that. So we all know that, the way that we judge quarterbacks in the Who Dat Nation, for the most part, not everybody, but some of you judge it on, first down, second down. What I mean by that is he's a toast of the town on first down when he gets 10 yards. On second down, if he grounds the ball, then he's the worst thing. And we looking on the sideline, seeing who we have as a backup. We are not very patient as a fan base. We don't have we don't have as much patience, right? And a lot of us don't even realize it. we have been programmed subliminally to talk about guys. A lot of the talking points that, I see on social media are people that try to raid my timeline, which that's one of the main reasons I ain't going back and forth with nobody, is paid for by the fine folks at ESPN and Fox Sports. Like, you don't have, you don't have, you don't really have a logical thought. Like, your thoughts are basically manufactured by other people. Now, if you don't fall into that category, I'm not talking about you. Simple, right? What they say, hit dogs holler. So if you don't fall into that category, I'm not talking about you. But I've read tweets coming from people that, and they are from other people verbatim, but they'll try to write it off as if it's their own thoughts and views. So the reality is this, man. It's not happening. And I wish this man the best. Even though this contract is out here, I don't see a reason why you would want to, concede and say that you are a backup when you know for a fact that you have what it takes to be a winner in the National Football League. So that's the way I look at it. Like, going back and forth with one another, talking about, whose fault is it, is pointless. The New Orleans Saints starting quarterback as of today is Derek Carr. And there's nothing none of us can do about it, right? So you have two choices here. It's rather you can be upset and mad and be mad at Dennis Allen and don't watch the Saints anymore, right? Because you're not happy about what the situation is, find another team. Or, you can still be upset about the situation, but understand that football sometimes, football is a business, and sometimes that business is in a way that we aren't happy with. But, I don't feel like, this should ruin your experience as a sports fan or as a Saints fan. I want to see this man do better, but, it's not going to happen in the Saints uniform. So, getting all puffed up, huffing and puffing, like the big bad wolf is not going to solve this situation. So there's that. I'll read some of your comments. Says, Carr literally dropped the ball at times. That's lame. Can't get worse than that. Lame as F. He definitely don't know football. Let's see. Jameis is really good. You got to be a real coach to get that out of him. Says he would overthrow Mike Thomas. Let's see. Jameis should have gotten on the plane to Indianapolis. I know more than you. Carr doesn't read the field anymore. I don't know if it's a conversation between a Raiders fan or somebody else. I don't know. Let's see. Whenever Jameis goes, I'm becoming a fan of that team. Look, I'm always going to be a fan of Jameis Winston because of the person that he is, the supporting staff that he has around him. I'm always going to be rooting for the guy. It's unfortunate what happened with the Saints, but the guy's career isn't over. I stand by it. Carr's best years were with Crabtree. Says, wouldn't mind Jameis come back to the Bucks. I heard a lot of Bucks fans say that. We the people, if he don't read the field, how is he the quarterback for almost a decade then? Crabtree made DC. I would love to see Jameis go to Washington. Ron Rivera and EB have both coached one MVP quarterback each. They can take him and be successful. Well, I think the Commanders want to see what they got with Sam Howell. Sam Howell had a really good college career out in North Carolina. And, the last time I actually seen him play, and that was a game that the Dallas Cowboys really was trying to win because they were trying to stay competitive and try to win so they can stay locked in step with the Philadelphia Eagles before the Philadelphia Eagles beat the Giants and won the division. So, he went out there and had 3 touchdowns. He even ran one in. So he had a really good performance. So I think they saw that and maybe they want to build on it. He made some really good throws in that game. So, you can go there, but, and compete. But I think they pretty much content with Sam. I think Emery made a really good point about the Pittsburgh Steelers and, what's going on with Kenny Pickett. I think that maybe you can compete with him. And who knows? You might end up, being that quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. We the people, exactly. Raiders are the problem. He was on a career best year before he tore his ACL. That is true. But that was when Sean Payton was the coach. is that dude Jameis 101, Jameis Winston family or something? Because I swear I done read broken back and ruptured tendon in the foot. We all know, bro. Yeah, I mean, look, Jameis 101. I mean, he's really passionate about, Jameis Winston, and he talks about the stats and the data and all that kind of stuff there. Me personally, man, I ain't trying to get into no debates with nobody that that feels that strongly about anything, but I got a lot of respect for him. At the end of the day, I just feel like nope. I'm just gonna be honest. Nobody really cares. Like seriously, nobody really cares about this, because here's the reality. Okay, if I can just take off the respect that I have for Jameis Winston for just 1 second. Here's what people feel. All right, not some people in here, but let's just be real. Like, we can't fake this. This guy has been in the league. He got drafted back in 2015, right? 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. So this is his ninth season. And yet you have people on social media and on Twitter, Facebook that are defending Jameis Winston to the death, as if Jameis Winston been in the league for 2 years. This is a guy who's been in the league for 9 years and has not won a playoff game. This is a guy who has, for some apparent reason, anytime things go wrong, there's always a reason why. And I can understand at points why people feel like this dude is being protected, and that's when people get on social media and they see people, like Jameis 101, you see people that are really just backing Jameis Winston like that. They make it, they are upset because they're making it seem like this dude just been in the league for like 2 years. He's been in the league for 9 years. And, it hasn't really come together. Now, there are times where it is not his fault that it didn't come together. But how many people are wondering, how many years are you going to continue to make these excuses? Right? If I had, it's almost like, man, you beat me in basketball. Let me change my shoes. You go on the sideline, you change your shoes, still lose. Man, nah, bro, these ain't the shoes right here. I got 2 pairs of shoes right now. They ain't really been worn in for basketball. Let me go home real quick and let me get the shoes that I always ball with. You come back with those shoes on and you lose. You know what, man? I can tell you what it is. It's this rim right here, man. This rim, I'm trying to put the ball up every time it's a double rim. So my shots ain't going in. Let's go to the other side over here where it don't have a double rim. And you lose. Man, I mean, how many times are we going to try to just make these excuses where you just realize that maybe it's just not your day? All right, that's how people feel. About where people start telling you things about Jameis Winston and his ability and his skills and all that kind of stuff. They like, come on, man. Like, when are you just going to come to the conclusion that maybe this guy isn't going to be everything that you want him to be? And even though his stats may reflect a certain thing, maybe his ability reflects a certain thing, it's just not going to come together. That's how, how people feel. Those that look at these things and people that, they watch these videos and they look at these tweets. That is what they're thinking, So, I mean, in a way, it's understandable. It's understandable. Now, me personally, I think that if you was to ask me, could it have worked in New Orleans with Jameis Winston? Absolutely, it would have. But once again, those onlookers aren't feeling that way. Let's see. Are you speaking about Carr's performance had dropped? He was leading the league at quarterback until Gruden was canceled. I never liked Jameis. Well, that's unfortunate. Let's see. You guys had a quarterback for 2 days. Calm down. Let's see. He's a great man, though. He is reckless. Yeah, great guy. Andy wasn't my favorite either. Just not a winner, a winning killer. Let's see. What many people miss is Sean Payton believed in Jameis and coached him well. DA did not, and it showed. Heck, Geno found a home on his third team. Dude should go to Denver under Payton. I agree with that. It wouldn't surprise me if he would. How about y'all calm down telling us your worries on Derek Carr? We don't. Look at this point. You can poke holes and talk about Derek Carr's imperfections. I don't care. Like, look, I don't care, man. Look, all I know is all this stuff right now, including what I'm saying right now, is just basically giving opinion. Everybody is talking about Derek Carr. You have not seen this guy perform in a Saints uniform. So you don't know how it's going to turn out. I might sound like at the end of the day, it is March 10th, 2023 on a Friday. You might run this back, and I might sound like the biggest idiot on this side of the Mississippi, or I might sound like a prophet. That's just the breaks. That's just the way that the cookie crumbles. That's just the way that you gamble, right? Life's a gamble. All I'm saying is I'm not going to sit up here and argue with somebody about something that I have not seen in a Saints uniform. I haven't seen it. Like, I'm willing to give anybody an opportunity. I'm not just going to just say, oh, man, this dude sucks. It's like somebody was talking about, like, I was talking about Braxton Berrios. Just because you have to go to Google and find out who Braxton Berrios is, if you don't follow the Jets or you didn't follow him at the University of Miami, doesn't mean that this guy doesn't have anything to offer. Like, just because you get wrapped up in names don't mean that the guy isn't a good player, right? That's all I'm saying. I would rather look at a guy, see him in a Saints uniform, and then evaluate it, right? I'm not going to do that. Like, some of us probably knew about Demario Davis, but we didn't think Demario Davis would be as special in the Saints uniform. We didn't think that, like, we thought like maybe he'll have something bring to the table. But if you was asking a couple years later after they signed him, he would be the undisputed leader of this team and an all-pro and a multi-time Pro Bowler, well, not multi-time Pro Bowler, but, I'm saying, a Pro Bowler, even though he deserves to be a multiple-time Pro Bowler, you'll be lying. Sometimes, you may not recognize the guy. Maybe he's not as a quick study as some of the guys that you recognize as a name, but, there's a place for him. Josh, thank you very much for $2. Says Carr is going to get us 30 touchdowns this year. I can believe that. Like, seriously, I can believe that. I can believe he can put up 30 touchdowns. Saints are in a win now situation. These players will move on eventually. I'm going to read a few more. It says, we the people that was 10 years ago for 4 teams who whoop-de-doo. Let's see. We the people, you make horrible points. Everyone forgets that Winston was trash in Tampa. He was not trash in Tampa. He was not trash in Tampa. 2019 season is the one season that everybody's looking at. But the guy, look, if you throw out the 30 interceptions in that one season, he averaged about 14 interceptions per season, which is about the league average. See, what we do is we look at Mahomes, who has single digits. We look at Aaron Rodgers, who has single digits. We look at some of these other elite quarterbacks who have single-digit interceptions. And once again, goes back to my point that I made on yesterday's show. If we match our quarterback up against those guys, and because those guys do that, if our quarterback isn't doing it, then we just automatically just throw them away. Like, they ain't good enough. And like I said, you look at the league average. As a league, quarterbacks average between 13 to 14 interceptions per season, period. Like, so, I mean, Jameis Winston was not a terrible quarterback. He was not. He was not a terrible quarterback. What we do is we look at that 2019 season and we act as if that was the only year he played, and it wasn't. So, hey, I hope Jameis goes somewhere he can flourish and reach his max potential. He's a good quarterback that can be great. I think that, I don't know if he can be great. I'm not going to lie to you. I don't know if he's going to be great, but I know that he can be a serviceable quarterback. He can be a good quarterback. He can be a quarterback that can help a team win. Like, he's not like, man, bro, there's a lot of starting quarterbacks in the league that Jameis Winston is better than. He just didn't have a stable line. Risk it and biscuit mentality got him in 2019. We the people, LOL. What do we need to do to win? Well, look, you need stability at the quarterback position. You need your offensive line to hold up. You need your wide receiver group to stay intact. And you need that defense to be able to replicate what they've done in the last 2 to 3 years. And, I think that if you do that, then you should be fine. That's just the way that I feel about it. Let's see. That same thing, people saying why Carr wasn't successful at the Raiders is the same situation Jameis had in Tampa. Look, that goes back to what I was saying, Brandon. It's the whole story about one person, the world is accepting, the situation. Another person, the world isn't accepting the situation, right? So when we say, Jameis came from a train wreck in Tampa, a lot of people aren't accepting that, right? With Derek Carr, people saying the same thing, and they're like, well, maybe it wasn't. Maybe it wasn't his fault. Is it fair? No. Having the best running back in the league would make the quarterback touchdown numbers go down because the running back is scoring more touchdowns. It was obvious to a Raider fan that the coaches were throwing the games. Carr had leads in all but 2 games, and the defensive calls through the game. Well, I don't know. That's a that's a can of worms. I don't think. A road I don't want to go down, I should say. Let's see, Big Sean, but he was still in his early 30s, which was the point I was making. Saints are going to be in the playoffs, and the Raiders aren't enough seed. Look, I don't know how we just getting on between the Saints and the Raiders. I don't know, like wrong time zone. Wrong division, wrong conference. Like, I don't know how we got here. I mean, the Raiders won't play the Saints for another 4 years, maybe. So y'all gonna be talking to each other for another 4 years, I guess. Carr has more turnovers last 5 seasons than any quarterback in the league. That's interesting right there. Derek Carr, come here and win the Superdome. Nobody gonna remember Jameis Winston tomorrow. That's a good point. That's a good point. If this man comes in and he wins, we won't be having this conversation. Winning absolves all. The most important thing with a quarterback is where you go and who believes in you. Geno found a home on team number 3. He was a backup in a good situation and made the most of his shot. Yeah, I mean, it's about belief. If you have the right coach believing in you, of course, things are going to happen that are positive in your life. If they don't, then it's going to be the latter, right? Couldn't finish. He has the most come from behind wins than any in the last 9 years. The defense sucked. Why not? Hurts has experience at both positions. We had a top 10 O-line last season, too inevitable. Yeah, you might have had that, but I don't know what we talking about. Raiders, the Saints. I don't think if we talking about the Saints offensive line, that's kind of hard to believe. As a Saints fan, we are not winning a Super Bowl. One thing I'm happy about is the Eagles are going downhill this offseason. Well, I don't know if the Saints can't make it to the big game. I don't know. I don't know, but I think they got a strong chance of making the playoffs. I think they have a strong chance of making some noise in the NFC. Because I don't really trust too many of these quarterbacks coming out this conference. And if you're looking at some of the top teams in the NFC, I feel like the Saints still can beat them. So there's that. Our defense sucked, but would make critical stops when it mattered, and our offense would have the ball last and Carr would choke. Well, I guess this is one of those situations where we just bashing Derek Carr. I don't know if you're a Raider fan, kicking them on the way out. I don't know. But I want to say thank you all for checking out the State of the Saints podcast. Really do appreciate it. Shouts out to, once again, Emery Hunt of CBS Sports for stopping by. Really do appreciate that. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, youtube.com, search The State of the Saints podcast, facebook.com, search The State of the Saints podcast. We got previous episodes available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor FM. You can follow me on Twitter at TJAY Jones 8. Till next time, all I got to say is